Welcome back to Closing Bell South Africa now in anticipation of Wednesday's annual budget speech, which will be delivered by the Finance Minister, Tito Mboweni. I'm joined by Isaiah Matlanga, who is Executive Chief Economist at Alexander Forbes Investments. Isaiah, good to have you on the show. It's been a while. Last we spoke, we were arguing about the MPC, yeah? Just give me a sense of where you actually see the fiscal space here. It has been a huge conversation around consolidation, fiscal space, ESCOM, SOEs, the usual suspects. Tell me, where do you see this going?
Look, let's just look at the macroeconomic background. Growth is very weak, which means tax revenues are not panning out as they should. So there is little to no adjustment that you should expect from the three biggest sources of tax, which is corporate income tax, personal income tax, and VAT, which together account for about 80% of tax revenues. Perhaps some adjustments could be made on the peripheral sources of tax, such as your ad valorem tax, your fuel levies, and your sin taxes. But that is very small in terms of actually boosting tax revenues, which means the expenditure side should do much of the lifting, which means they should actually cut spending for us to really start consolidating our fiscus. Is it possible to cut spending given the political context? What is the political context? You have ESCOM, which is underperforming, which requires quite a lot of bailout. You have SAA, which also requires a lot of money in terms of bailout. So our SOEs are not functioning in a financially sustainable manner. And
a fiscal stimulus that was actually announced just the other day.
Wow, that is not really a fiscal stimulus. A fiscal stimulus means you are injecting new money into the economy. A reprioritization of spending doesn't really count.
There's the optimist I had on the show the other day.
That's correct. Look, to put it correctly, that was just a spending reprioritization. Can they cut spending? Where can they cut spending? I think this is going to be the more difficult task, considering that the strength of unions and also it's an election year, they're unlikely to do that. So this budget is likely going to be much more difficult than what we have seen before.
I want to break down some of the complex matters here. Now, some of the analysts are looking at maybe going back into corporate income tax, which you have actually touched, but at 28%, this is one of the highest globally. How feasible is this going forward? If you are Tito Mboweni, would you actually touch this 28% on the corporate tax? I
wouldn't touch it. The economy is very weak. If you look at corporate profitability, it has been declining for some time. Now, if you tax in an environment where corporate profitability is moderating, it implies that you're putting these corporates that are employing a lot of people into more stringent operating environment. What will they do in response? They're likely to cut workforce, and it's not going to gel well with your electorate that you are seeking
in an election year.
In an election year, exactly. So I wouldn't think corporate income tax is the right form of tax that you need to administer in a slow economic environment.
How about capital gains?
Perhaps capital gains tax, because that talks to this inequality, talk to say you are redistributing.
And that's a story that's very good in an election year. Capital gains tax and dividends.
We can expect capital gains or dividends withholding tax, but I don't think it's going to solve our fiscal problem. It's not going to generate enough in order to reduce our debt to GDP ratios. The solution really is, if you look at the size of public sector wage bill, it's one of the highest globally. If you look at SOE's headcount, they are bloated. Now, you need to reduce both government headcount. You also need to reduce SOE headcount, combine that with coming up with a financially sustainable path for these SOEs so that they do not require as much guarantees from the state. And that is going to free money that is used to guarantee these SOEs that can be used for other things.
Isaiah, let's talk about the sin tax, because if I'm, from what you're explaining, there's really a lot of pressure coming from 1,001 places. If you're Tito Mboweni right now, you're in a very, very tough place. I'm thinking sin tax is definitely they're going up, from the wine to the cigarettes. Definitely, these are things that we are going to expect rather. Tell me, if leading up to Wednesday, sin taxes, where do you see him tightening?
Obviously, sin taxes are likely to go up. I would double them if I was Tito Mboweni, because...
I take it you don't drink wine?
No. Those that can afford to drink those nice bottles and whiskeys means they can afford to pay. So I would increase in tax with little economic consequence, but it's again not going to solve our fiscal problems because it doesn't generate as much revenues compared to the three main tax sources.
Finally, very, very briefly, let's talk Eskom, this partitioning into three. Do you see him shedding some more light on this, particularly also with SAA ultimately? Without
shedding more light on how Eskom's financial sustainability is going to be solved, we are in a very big bind in terms of credit rating agencies. As they said, Moody's the other day said if there is no accompanying plan to set Eskom on a financially sustainable path, even if Eskom is given a bailout, that will be credit negative. So we expect both a bailout and a plan to set Eskom on a sustainable path. The same with SAA. We've just had an announcement that SAA is also going to be broken down into three parts. Without the details of what then that follows after the breaking down of these SOEs, I think it's going to be credit negative. So the probability of a Moody's downgrade would increase if there isn't any details. And definitely is dependent on whatever is going to happen on Wednesday. Isaiah, definitely looking forward to seeing you on Wednesday. That was Isaiah Matlanga, who is a senior, should I say, economist, chief economist there over at Alex Forbes. Let's move on.